I'm going to play 2 notes for you. The first note has a pitch of 440 Hz and is what musicians would call in tune. The second has a slightly higher pitch than desired, which we would call sharp. This is what happens when I play them both at once. Not the prettiest sound in the world. You can imagine if one person in a group is sharp while the rest are in tune, how that would stick out and degrade the performance. Now, I recorded both these audio clips in the same session, without adjusting my saxophone or anything between. So why is the second one sharp? Temperature. I ran a small experiment to track how far pitch changes on my alto sax. I turned F sharp at room temperature and practiced for 30 minutes without retuning. I recorded the pitch of F sharp every 5 minutes and got the graph shown here. The sounds produced by musical instruments are generally dependent on the size of the instrument. Metals such as brass contract as temperatures increase and thus the pitch gets slightly sharper. Wind instruments start at room temperature and then warm up as musicians blow warm air through them. Musical instruments go out of tune as they change in temperature. This can prevent correct tuning at very low temperatures and/or can result in changing intonation mid-song. My approach was to warm the instrument such that it maintains a more consistent temperature and intonation during practices and performances. So what does the solution need to do? Portability is a concern because during competitions or football games, instruments need to be transported over long distance, sometimes multiple times. The solution needs to be easy to move with the instrument. Also during these events, there are long periods of time where the band is not allowed to play. If the solution is loud, it defeats the purpose of heating without blowing. Finally, while it's impossible to make one design that works for every type of wind instrument, designing a solution that works on several different instruments is ideal to maximize the market appeal and minimize redesigns. The rest of these requirements should be pretty self-explanatory. Looking at some previous attempts to solve this issue, we have the musical instrument heater and the electrically heated musical instrument stand. Both of these inventions suffer in portability, as you need to carry a large object to put your instrument in or on. This brass mouthpiece warmer, while flexible and portable, still requires tuning of the instrument, as eventually you need to put the mouthpiece back in the instrument, which affects tuning. Finally, retuning is the way musicians currently deal with pitch deviation. I won't spend any time on these potential prototypes, but the details are on screen if you want to pause. After filling the decision matrix, I ended up focusing on the heated blanket wrap due to its simplicity compared to the precision heater. I'll refer to my invention as the IHW, or the instrument heat wrap. After brainstorming modifications, I settled on a curved shape instead of a rectangular one, such that it would fold into a cone around the instruments. I also decided on 4 plug connection points to allow the IHW to adjust for different sized instruments. To test the prototype, I conducted several experiments very similar to my initial test with the help of a few band members. TLDR, the participant tunes their instrument and plays it for 30 minutes. Every 5 minutes, I check their tuning to see how much it has changed. I repeat this process once without the IHW, once with the IHW on before the test, and once with the IHW on before and during the test. These are the results in graph form. For reference, the notes I played at the start of the video were 20 cents apart. I'm looking for a minimal range between these values, since that represents the minimum change in pitch. There are some curious trends present, such as test B having the largest effects for both trumpet and trombone, while test C was far better for alto sax. Mellophone appeared to be affected the least by the IHW, which makes sense. It's the largest instrument out of the 4, so naturally it would take the longest to warm up. For trumpet, trombone, and alto sax, the IHW appeared to help reduce pitch deviation, so I believe there is some potential with this design. However, I cannot confidently say that the IHW will create similar results to what I've found. More testing with several different players would be incredibly valuable, but due to the nature and length of my testing procedures, it probably would have been wiser to create a different test that didn't take as long. Additionally, I only gave the IHW between 4 and 5 minutes to heat up, which may not have been enough to affect the alto and mellophone. Increasing the power or thickness of the IHW to increase its heat generating power are also things I'm curious about. The process of creating the instrument heat wrap involved a lot of thinking outside of my comfort zone. I was constantly forced to take a step back and think through processes several days or even weeks in advance. Several topics in previous years of STEM came up during this, namely thermodynamics and circuits. By combining these fields, as well as my own research, I was able to create the instrument heat wrap.